Number 5. A dying star. Stars live for hundreds of million years, but in the grand sense of things, in the big cosmic sense, that's kind of just an infancy. Stars live fast and die young. But what does a dying star look like? Thanks to billions of dollars of telescope technology, we can get some answers on a cosmic dying star. A few years ago, the Hubble Space Telescope captured some pretty good spooky vibes by snapping an image of the dying star CW Leonis. This is my first picture of a dying star, and I gotta say, it is as ethereally beautiful as I had expected. It looks like a cosmic cobweb, like a fractal galactic spiderweb. Oh, say that 5 times fast. Am I the only one who kind of gets like Lovecraft vibes out of this? This interstellar spiderweb looking star seems like the kind of thing a protagonist in a Lovecraft story would look into and then become aware of his insignificance and then gets driven to madness and collapses after viewing the true name of an old god. Sorry, I've been reading the Necronomicon before bed every night. Now, I'm not much of a scientist, I just look at pretty pictures of space and go, that looks cool. But it doesn't take rocket appliances to understand what's going on here. NASA did explain it easy enough for us layman's. This star is called a carbon star. Cobwebs that are surrounding it are carbon absorbing the dying star. The outer layers of the star are being sucked into the black void of space. Where that goes, absolutely no idea. Like I said, I'm not much of a scientist. I can just look at a star and think it looks pretty cool. And it does. And if you're looking to see way more cool, scary space content, well, you're in the right space already. Subscribe to the channel for new stuff every day, or click through our huge archive of scary content. Let's keep going. Number 4. Space face. And the Hubble telescope seemed to have a real eye for finding bizarre, scary things up in the stars. I only picked 5 here, but there are so many more crazy things out of the Hubble telescope. It's worth looking at. But this is something else. I don't know how you could see something like this and ever want to look at the stars again. This probably would have convinced me of some sort of cosmic god staring back at me. All I can see looking at this looming specter of some incomprehensibly big galactic skull, it makes me feel like this is going to be the next big villain of one of the Avengers movies. So what actually is this, if not a looming sign of the apocalypse? Well, it's actually pretty fascinating. I mean, that goes without saying. It's 2 galaxies crashing into each other. Each of the skull's glowing eyes are the bright cores of a galaxy as the 2 of them are collapsing in on one another. Cluster of blue stuff you see are all young little baby stars colliding into one another. Also, a side note, did you know galaxies could crash into each other? Because I definitely did not know that was a possibility until I started reading for this video. Did not know space was full of traffic accidents, and now I'm kind of stressed about it. Apparently though, it's a pretty rare occurrence. NASA and the ESA said that there's only a few hundred situations like this that live inside our larger cosmic neighborhood. The bad news, this beautiful cosmic coincidence won't last forever. We've only got about 2 billion more years or so, give or take, to appreciate this lovely phenomenon. So it's a good thing we got this photo while we did. We almost missed it. Photos will last longer. Number 3. Spiders on Mars. Now, not to burst anyone's cosmic bubble, but sadly, what we're looking at right now are not proof of alien life on Mars. It's not Attack of the Giant Arachnids taking over the Red Planet, as cool as that would be. They just look exactly like they're horrifying monstrosities from beyond the stars. I'm not really great with spiders as is, let alone when they're not from this planet. So what are we looking at then? Well, what we're looking at right now is called an araeniform. Araeniform is a fancy science word that means spider-like, and it mostly gets used when describing this particular phenomena viewed from the surface of Mars. So basically what these are little channels, and these grooves converge at a point together and give off a sort of optical illusion of spiders crawling the surface of Mars. And this is far from the only time telescopes have shown us something weird looking at the surface of Mars, and there's a lot of things up there, like that one rock that looked exactly like a human face, or those rocks that look like bones. But this repeated phenomena sure makes for some interesting photos. It makes me want to get up there way faster. The question if there's life on Mars is one of the most compelling questions in the world right now, at least to me and David Bowie. I'm sure there's some form of bacterial life or some sort of prototype life on Mars right now, but I just really hope that it's not gigantic spiders. Number 2, The Darkness. One of my all-time favorite films is Ridley Scott's 1979 classic Alien. The first time I watched it, I was a little kid and I was terrified beyond words. And that was before the alien even shows up. I mean, you're already scared. If you've seen the movie, you know. The vibes are immaculate, all that darkness and spookiness up in space. And looking at these photos of the ISS at night look like photos straight out of the USCSS Nostromo behind the scenes. It's a look into the life of an astronaut we don't get to see too often or really think about. When you're up in space, night doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, you've traveled outside the concept of there being a night and a day. The ISS orbits the Earth 16 times a day, meaning you're seeing the sunset 16 times a day. But we can't just expect astronauts to stay awake 100% of the time, so when the astronauts need to sleep, all the lights go out to simulate the effect of being nighttime, just like you do when you put a blanket over a bird's cage. And the effects are anything but soothing. An astronaut, Alexander Gerst, takes photos to stave off boredom while he's floating above the cosmos, and one instance, instead of drifting off to bed, he decided to take a series of photos showcasing what nightlife on the ISS looks like, and we thank him for it, because it's a harrowing reminder of how lonely and strange being an astronaut must be. I gotta wonder, is it easy to get to sleep like that? And finally, at number 1, cracked glass. It has gotta be so odd, being on the ISS, being out in the vast, unending cosmos, getting to see a perspective that people almost never get to see, and also knowing that the only thing keeping you alive is being inside this station and that the environment around you literally can't support your life and you're lost in a sea of stars. The ESA, European Space Agency, tweeted a photo out a little bit ago of a crack in the window of the ISS. A bit of a disconcerting sight. The damage was caused by a floating piece of debris that collided into the observatory of the ISS. Luckily, the chip was only about a quarter of an inch, and while it looks incredibly unnerving, and if I saw that on the station I would probably be sweating my hair out, the ESA reassures everyone that the damage does not pose a threat. Now the unnerving part is that they speculate that the object that damaged the window could have been something as small as a flake of paint that came off of the ISS and collided with the window. A flake of paint. If your first thought was, well, what about something ever so slightly larger? The ESA has the same worry, and it said that a piece of debris larger than 4 inches would be enough to completely shatter a satellite or a spacecraft wide open. That would probably prevent me from ever getting a good sleep again, knowing that there's always a possibility something teeny tiny could tear a hole open and have us all sucked into space. Sweet dreams! The threat of space debris is a growing concern for NASA and the ESA and other space organizations, as debris keeps getting lost up there and isn't getting taken away. We've already messed Earth up pretty bad, so it would be a galactic embarrassment if we also trash up the stars. Might need to get someone up there to sweep up a little bit.
Number 5. Space Camp. Starting this list off, we arrive at the Apollo 8 mission. Well, 7 other missions before it, but it was a little rocky back then, The early days. But Apollo 8 was the first fully crewed spacecraft to leave low Earth orbit and the first human spaceflight to reach the moon. Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders, aka the crew, orbited the moon 10 times without landing. December 21st, 1968. The Apollo 8 astronauts returned to Earth on December 27th, 1968. Now, here's the scary part. Apparently, while they were up there, they claimed to have seen some pretty strange stuff. Some weird lights, glowing moving balls, and apparently bonfires all over the moon. What? Yeah, apparently the men said it looked like smoke and small bonfires when visiting the far side of the moon. When the capsule passed behind the moon for 45 minutes, the crew claimed to have seen multiple lights coming from the surface. And thankfully, NASA even transcribed what they heard. Borman says, bonfires. Anders says campfires. All in all, we have astronauts puzzled at what they're seeing. 7 months later, Apollo 11 is performing a mission orbiting the moon and captures apparently a bunch of things that are out of the ordinary. Buzz and Collins both claim to have seen things like lava flowing, aliens parked on craters, to even small bonfires and flickers on the surface. Of course, there's no oxygen on the moon, so what could have caused the fire and the smoke? Number 4, air buds. As always, dudes, if you dig what we do here on Top 5 Scary, hit that thumbs up button or leave a comment down below. It really helps us out. What's the biggest NASA secret you know of? Let me know down below. I'll check it out. When we think about astronauts that have spent their fair share up in space, we can't forget the experiments in the early stages of both the Soviets and the American space programs. It truly was a race, pushing the limits faster and faster, bigger and bolder kind of stuff, and with that omelet comes a couple broken eggs. We often forget that NASA has sent its fair share of animals up there as well, and of course, unfortunately, not many of them have returned back to us. Yeah, very sad. Science is one of those things where its benefits are tremendous, but the hypothesis part sometimes are a little dark and grim. We remember Laika, the space dog, and her 103-minute cosmic journey aboard Sputnik 2, but let's not forget the infamous Able and Baker. This was the American version of Laika, only a year later too. 1959, the United States launched one female rhesus monkey named Able and one female squirrel monkey named Baker into space. This mission lasted only 15 minutes and they both safely returned back home. Their predecessors, others, not so lucky. See, a couple of animals have yet to return from their space mission. Mice, geckos, dogs. It was a different time. To announce their successful flight, NASA unveiled Abel and Baker to journalists in the same room where just a month prior they had introduced the Mercury 7 crew as the country's first human astronauts. Big jumps, right? Sadly, after the training and missions, both animals passed. But you can visit them at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum where they're both on display. A little dark and grim, but we pay homage. Number 3. VALKYRIE. NASA has been experimenting with a little bit more tech in the last 20 years. A little bit more robotics instead of fitting humans into a capsule. Seems like this next project has been in the works for some years, but under silent lock and key until recent years. VALKYRIE is the name of the NASA's new semi-secretive AI project. Taken from Norse mythology, VALKYRIE is designed to be a robust, rugged, and entirely electric humanoid robot capable of operating in degraded or damaged human-engineered environments. The NASA R5, aka VALKYRIE, is the size of a full human adult with a 7-digit price tag, putting it a little bit more expensive than the very terrestrial Tesla bot. This robot was originally built for the 2013 DARPA Robotics Challenge. The 6-foot, 300-pound piece of machinery represents the future of space exploration. It's the first step towards a goal of human colonization on Mars and other planets in our solar system. Dude, this is nuts! High hopes for the robot. However, currently tethered to the ceiling of a warehouse in Lowell, Massachusetts. Oh. The Lowell model is one of 4 units produced by NASA. The space agency held on to 1 robot for its own purposes and awarded 2 to the research of Northwestern and MIT, while the 4th lives in Scotland's University of Edinburgh. The 4 models are being tinkered and tailored on as we speak. Long story short, we've reached a peak in space travel where maybe living things don't have to make it or break it anymore. To reduce hazards and prevent any more life being lost or altered for science, the VALKYRIE is an option for NASA to search very hazardous environments while keeping a pretty safe distance while doing so. Number 2. Ice cold. We all know about Jupiter's moon Europa. I was like 18 when I found out about all the planets' moons in our solar system. Yeah. Did you know that Jupiter has 79 moons? Like 79. Yeah, we have 1. Like, we know nothing, Jon Snow. Well, maybe we know something, because apparently we've found traces of water on a couple different rocks now. Europa, the 6th largest moon in our solar system. It was discovered in 1610, and ever since then, we've kind of wondered what's on it. In 1979, the 2 Voyager spacecrafts passed through the Jovian system, providing the first hints that Europa may contain liquid water. The ground-based telescopes on Earth, along with the Galileo spacecraft and telescopes, have increased scientists' confidence for a European ocean. Yeah, cue NASA's Sesame program. Scientific exploration subsurface access mechanism for Europa. Sesame will not drill, however, but actually thaw its way under the icy ocean, and from there will operate small probes to conduct an array of research on biology, sediment, gases, and of course what we're all hoping for, humanoid mermaid-looking aliens. However, the part that really has NASA's attention is all of the tectonic activity beneath said icy shelf, meaning that somewhere in the middle, there's warm water flowing under with currents. Yeah, creepy. In 2011, NASA awarded Stone Aerospace $4 million to fund Phase 2 of Project Sesame. Phase 2 of the project consisted of testing the cryobot in Alaska in 2015. Phase 3 of the project will use a swarm of tiny robots the size of cell phones to whisk through the water beneath the thick icy shelf of Jupiter's moon looking for evidence of alien life. The tiny robots would be released underwater, swimming far from their mothership to explore a new world. Basically, the cryobot melts its way through the subglacial lake, collects samples, resurfaces, and comes back home. Yeah, seems like an alien movie plot just ready for scripting, huh? And number 1, Artemis 1. So we haven't been back to the moon since 1972, but why? Well folks, we're going back. And soon, like 2 weeks soon. Yeah, I didn't know either, as I'm a millennial who doesn't watch the news on TV. We're going back to the moon, people, but not the Apollo program anymore. No, we've changed the name to another Greek name. They're twin, Artemis. Apparently, Artemis 1 will be the first in a series of increasingly complex missions to build a long-term human presence on the moon for decades to come. Oh yeah, we're staying. Like building forts and stuff. The primary goals for Artemis 1 are to demonstrate Orion's systems in a spaceflight environment and to ensure a safe re-entry, descent, splashdown, and recovery. Basically like the full shebang. Yeah, not taking any more risks, huh NASA? Safety first kind of deal. I like it. Not a long mission too. September 27th they're supposed to launch and splash back down here in November. Like 38 days long. Nice little quick one. And then reevaluate and select the people. Yeah, dude, this is sick. I'm down with phase 2 space stuff, you know? Like, let's get that robot up there.
In at number 5 we have North Korea. North Korea is one of the most strict and repressive countries in the world, so it's safe to say they like to hide a lot of things about their country from the rest of the world. Many things in North Korea are illegal, and these certain things that we in the Western world would think is nuts. For example, it's forbidden to take pictures of the daily life of the North Korean people that are not well dressed. Photographer Eric Laforge visited this mysterious country a whopping 6 times to try and understand more about the people, places, and the strict authoritative way of life. Eric wasn't interested in the carefully orchestrated tourist trips revealing only fake North Korea facts. He wanted to go beyond that, to catch a domestic glimpse of the land and people that aren't under the complete control of the regime. I was treated like any other tourist, Eric stated. They didn't allow me to take pictures of the police, the army, etc. But with a 300mm zoom lens and a seat in the back of the bus, I could take so many. He shot thousands of pictures showing citizens and government officials going about their everyday lives. As soon as they were opening a new area to visit, I tried to go and see it, documenting the life in North Korea. After Eric returned home in 2012, however, the government discovered him sharing secretly taken North Korean photos online. They demanded him to take down the images. I refused, as they showed all the aspects of the hermit kingdom, the good and the bad, just like I do with any country I visit. I refused to make an exception for North Korea, and they didn't like this. Soon the regime banned Laforge from crossing its border ever again. Kim Jong-un is so strict, and many things about North Korea not shown to the world and kept very secretive. We may never know what else they are hiding. In at number 4 we have Tank Man, China. On June 5th, 1989, there were protesters at the Tiananmen Square, and the Chinese troops began violently cracking down on these pro-democracy demonstrators who had been in the square for over a month. Jeff Widener watched and photographed as a man confronted the lead tank, standing directly in front of it. The tank stopped and tried to go around the man. The man moved, and at one point during the standoff, the man climbed aboard the lead tank and spoke to whoever was inside. The man was eventually pulled away by onlookers. To this day, we don't know who he is or what happened to him, but he remains a powerful symbol of defiance, and the Chinese government did not like this and didn't want the world to see their people disobeying authority. Practically any image that so much as gestures at the famed photograph of a man in front of a line of tanks risks deletion from the country's closely monitored web. Recreations showing a line of books approaching a cigarette package, a swan before an oncoming truck, or a grasshopper in front of a tire have all been removed. The Chinese government's utmost priority is discouraging unified anti-establishment action, but does more than prevent political unrest. Jason NG, the author of Blocked on Weibo, states that clearly it is not only protests that are being censored. There is some sort of intentionality, he said. It's fascinating to think through the moral reasons why things are removed. How does the government try to shape social mores? How do they try to shape culture through censorship? Some removed images are unsurprising, depictions of state-sanctioned violence, cartoons disparaging government leaders, and aerial shots of protests. All images, even harmless ones, of top Chinese political leaders are banned, except on official websites and approved blogs. In at number 3, moon landing, flag flying in the wind. One of the biggest conspiracy theories is the first moon landing was real or faked by NASA with the help from the US government. The most famous picture shows Buzz Aldrin planting an American flag in the soil of the moon, and it appears the flag is moving, clearly showing the presence of wind, which is impossible in space. NASA says Aldrin was twisting the flagpole to get into the moon's soil, which caused the flag to move. In the late 1960s, the space race was a competition between nations regarding achievements in the field of space exploration, and that was the United States' motivation. They wanted to win the space race and be the first ever to land on the moon, ahead of the Soviet Union, and they would do anything to be the first and beat out all of the others. Conspiracy theorists claim that NASA faked their landings to avoid humiliation and to ensure that it continued to get funding. NASA raised about $30 billion to go to the moon, and this could have been used to pay off many people. Since most believed that sending men to the moon was impossible at that time, they argue that landings had to be faked to fulfill J.F. Kennedy's 1961 goal that before this decade is out, we will land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. In fact, NASA accounted for the cost of Apollo to the US Congress in 1973, totaling $25.4 billion. Virgil Grissom, Edward H. White, and Roger B. Schaefer were 3 astronauts who died in a fire while testing equipment for the first moon mission. It's theorized that this was no accident, and they were in fact executed by the US government, who feared they were about to disclose the truth. Due to the power power of the government, we may never really know the truth of the moon landing, but since this famous photo was released, it had been highly criticized, and the government and NASA have done everything they can to get it off the internet and keep the world quiet. In at number 2, banning of Winnie the Pooh in China. For many, Winnie the Pooh and his gang was something we all grew up on, was pivotal in our childhood, and is ingrained in our memories of growing up. But China banned Winnie the Pooh, so many kids may never know of these cute characters. The Chinese government gives internet censorship a whole new meaning. The Chinese name for and images of the plump, cute cartoon characters are being blocked on social media sites because bloggers have been comparing him to China's president. It started when Chinese President Jinping visited the US in 2013, and an image of him and then President Barack Obama walking together spurred comparisons to Winnie the Pooh walking with Tigger. Jinping was again compared to the fictional bear in 2014 during a meeting with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe when they had one of the most awkward handshakes ever, and then the internet responded with Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore shaking hands with side-by-side images showing both. And then there was the time the president popped his head out of the roof of his special red flag limousine to inspect the troops, and after that photo appeared online of a toy of Winnie the Pooh popping out of his own little car. It is not only that China's censors will not tolerate ridicule of the country's leader, they do not want this beloved children's character becoming a kind of online euphemism for the Communist Party's general secretary. In other countries, such comparisons might be thought of as harmless enough or become a funny viral meme, but not in China. Even in 2018, when the film Christopher Robin was coming out, China had banned it from their country. And finally, in at number 1, we have UFO sightings. Unidentified flying object sightings have been reported throughout history in various parts of the world, raising questions about life on other planets and whether extraterrestrials do in fact exist. The first well-known UFO sighting occurred in 1947 when Kenneth Arnold claimed to see a group of 9 high-speed objects near Mount Rainier in Washington while flying his small plane. Arnold said he thought the speeds were several thousand miles per hour and they moved like saucers skilling on water. That same year, a rancher named Mac Brazel came across a mysterious 200-year-long wreckage near an army airfield in Roswell, New Mexico. The local papers reported it was the remains of a flying saucer, but the US military issued a statement saying it was just a weather balloon, even though the photograph of the mysterious object suggested otherwise. Throughout the next few years, sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena increased, and by the early 1950s, people's obsession with UFOs was skyrocketing. This led the CIA to prompt the US government to establish an expert panel of scientists to investigate the phenomena. The panel was headed by H.P. Robertson, a physicist in California, along with other physicists, an astronomer, and a rocket engineer. These group findings said that these sightings could be attributed to astronomical and meteorological phenomena or earthly objects such as aircrafts, balloons, birds, or searchlights. Parts of the panel's report were kept classified until 1979, and this long period of secrecy helped fuel suspicion of government cover-up. It has been highly debated that the government is covering up these sightings by the public to shut them up and give them false answers like these UFOs are just military aircrafts or weather balloons. Many sightings of UFOs have been seen in the area around Area 51, which is a highly classified place in Nevada. Area 51 is used as a government base for secret military Air Force activity, and they have a connection to classified aircraft research. It wasn't until 2013 did the CIA publicly acknowledge the existence of the base and the true work they do at this secret air base. It's not known by anyone. Area 51 is so secretive that they have armed security around the perimeter and signage advising trespassers that deadly force is authorized. The base also is equipped with high levels of security like surveillance cameras and motion detectors all over the place. Remember when everyone was going to storm Area 51? What a time to be alive.